Hello and welcome to MAGA, the podcast. Now, this is not your racist uncle's MAGA. Our MAGA stands for I'm an Angry Asshole, the cult of Donald Trump. And I am your host, the Disgusted American. Now, our mission is to show how Don the Con bamboozled a nation. Our goal is to help make sure the cult of MAGA goes down in flames by 2028. We want to stop it before MAGA becomes unstoppable and a democracy further decays into a dictatorship. Now, if we want the cult of MAGA to end, we have to know how it began and why it spread. We have to go back to Trump 1.0, the election of 2016. In our last episode, we explored the anatomy of a fake news story. We went through the 7 commandments of making fake news work. We looked at the origination of this process from the Soviet Union during the Cold War. And the primary architect of the fake news playbook was Vladimir Putin. And all this stuff migrated to the internet age. Pizzagate was just a taste, a small operation. But a much bigger operation was in play, influencing the 2016 presidential election. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the big question. Why did Putin and Russian intelligence go so hard for Trump in 2016? So Putin definitely did not want Hillary Clinton to win the 2016 election for a couple of important reasons. First, he blamed Clinton for the 2011-2012 mass protests in Russia against his rule. She was the Secretary of State at the time. Second, the Kremlin believed that with Clinton in the White House, it would be almost impossible to lift sanctions against Russia. So this became a very important mission for Putin personally. It was a question of national security. Now, his feelings for Trump were very different. On October 28, 2015, Trump signed a letter of intent to construct a Trump-branded building in Moscow. This occurred hours before the third Republican presidential debate and was all made public in August of 2017 after Trump was already in office. The letter of intent proposed that the tower have approximately 250 first-class luxury residential condominiums and one first-class luxury hotel consisting of approximately 15 floors and containing no fewer than 150 hotel rooms. The Trump Organization would receive 1 to 5% of all condominium sales and 3% of all rental and other revenues and 20% of the overall operating profit. If you know anything about Trump, it's that he's really motivated by money. He's motivated by grandeur. So a premium Russian condominium / hotel complex with his name and a bunch of money attached, very appetizing. So how did Putin move in, right? What did he do or what did he inspire for the 2016 election?
Russia's role in the 2016 presidential race has been looming over national politics and national confidence in the election. And while the question of whether or not there was a connection to President Trump's campaign remains unanswered, there are a multitude of details coming to light about how Russia executed its campaign to influence the selection of the president.
The Russian government conducted foreign electoral interference in the 2016 elections with a couple of goals in mind. First, they wanted to sabotage the campaign of Hillary Clinton. Second, they wanted to boost the presidential campaign of Donald Trump. Third, they wanted to increase political and social discord in the United States. According to the U.S. intelligence community, this operation, which was codenamed Project Lacta, was ordered directly by Putin himself. This hacking disinformation campaign that was meant to damage Clinton and help Trump became the core of the scandal known as Russiagate.
According to the U.S. intelligence community's assessment, the campaign was directed from the very seat of power in Russia, Vladimir Putin himself. And it had at least 3 elements: online propaganda, hacking into and exposing political organizations and individuals' emails, and targeting state election systems.
Now, Russian trolls really became a big deal during the election of 2016. Where did they come from?
Months after November 2016, Twitter and Facebook revealed that they have identified a troll farm in St. Petersburg, called the Internet Research Agency, that created and operated some of these accounts. It has a history of pushing pro-Kremlin propaganda and waging social media campaigns in the US.
They created thousands of social media accounts that pretended to be Americans and supported radical political groups that planned to promote events in support of Trump and against Clinton.
The Russians' online disinformation campaign sprawled over Facebook, Twitter, and Google. Through a web of automated social media accounts, or bots, and pages, Russian operatives shared free and paid posts to millions of Americans. They commented on political content, devised fictitious news stories, and created ads that their accounts amplified with automated shares and ad dollars, and targeted to specific voters, including battleground state residents.
So from June 2016, the IRA organized election rallies in the United States that promoted, again, Trump over Clinton. They posed as Americans. They hid their Russian background while asking Trump campaign members for campaign buttons, flyers, and posters for their rallies.
Millions of Americans ended up unknowingly sharing the fake news and viewing the ads, which are illegal. Foreign nationals and governments are banned from spending money to influence U.S. elections.
And Facebook was their big play. The Mueller investigation listed IRA-created groups on Facebook, entities like the Tea Party News, which is supposed to be a conservative group, Blacktivists, which was supposed to be a Black social justice group, LGBT United, an LGBTQ supposed group, United Muslims of America, a religious group. And their Twitter accounts at the time included @10_GOP, which claimed to be related to the Tennessee Republican Party. And a couple of their accounts for Jen Abrams and Pamela Moore both claimed to be Trump supporters and both had 70,000 followers. These were all Russian. Advertisements bought by Russian operatives on social media sites were estimated to have reached over 10 million users. But many more users were contacted by accounts created by Russian actors. There were 470 Facebook accounts known to have been created by Russians during the 2016 campaign. Of those accounts, 6 generated content that was shared at least 340 million times. According to research done by Jonathan Albright, who's a research director for Columbia, the most strident internet promoters of Trump were paid Russian propagandists and trolls. They were estimated by The Guardian to number several thousand. And they began to intermingle with Trump's campaign. Trump campaign members like Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Kellyanne Conway, Brad Parscale, they all linked or reposted material from this IRA @10_GOP Twitter account. Other people who also responded to these accounts included Sean Hannity, Roger Stone, and Michael Flynn Jr., again, core Trump advisors. Facebook originally denied that fake news was rampant on their platform and that fake news had influenced the election. They insisted they were unaware of any Russian-financed advertisements. But later they would admit that about 126 million Americans may have seen posts published by Russia-based operatives.
But not all the work is linked to the agency, suggesting an even more expansive cyber effort to influence voters' perceptions.
So outside of the IRA, who else was involved?
2 Russian-affiliated news outlets, RT and Sputnik, were also linked to the propaganda campaign, and at least one platform, Twitter, is banning them from advertising there.
Well, there were also computer hackers affiliated with the Russian Military Intelligence Service, the GRU, and they were able to infiltrate information systems.
Russia's politically motivated hacks. Hackers used spear phishing attacks to penetrate the Democratic National Committee's computer network, as well as emails from individuals like Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, John Podesta. The hacked information was released using WikiLeaks, the Guccifer 2.0 persona, and the site dcleaks.com. The intelligence community linked the hacking groups, dubbed APT-28 and APT-29, or Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear, to Russia's military intelligence service, the GRU. The CIA determined that the hacks were part of Russia's efforts, not just to undermine confidence in the election, but to actively help Trump win the presidency.
Now remember, Pizzagate got the seeds of truth from Podesta's emails via WikiLeaks. Several individuals connected to Russia contacted various Trump campaign associates. They offered amazing business opportunities to the Trump organization. They offered damaging information on Clinton. Now, Russian government officials have denied information in any of the hacks or leaks, but the FBI opened an investigation known as the Crossfire Hurricane Investigation in July of 2016. This investigation included a special focus on links between Trump associates and Russian officials and spies, and a suspected coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Now, these Russian interference activities did trigger a strong response. There were strong statements from U.S. intelligence agencies that Russia attempted to interfere in the election. These were first disclosed publicly by members of the United States Congress in September of 2016. They were confirmed by U.S. intelligence agencies in October of 2016, and further details were provided by the Director of National Intelligence Office in January of 2017. And there was some strong rebukes to these efforts. There's direct warning by then U.S. President Barack Obama to Russian President Vladimir Putin. There were renewed economic sanctions against Russia, closures of Russian diplomatic facilities, and expulsion of their staff. The Senate and House Intelligence Committees conducted their own investigations into the matter. Donald Trump, of course, denied interference had occurred. The Republican-led Senate Intelligence Committee investigation submitted the first in their 5-volume, 1,313-page report in July of 2019. This volume, the result of 3 years of investigations, was released in August of 2020. It was found that Russia had engaged in an extensive campaign to sabotage the election in favor of Trump, which included assistance from some of Trump's own advisors. Now, in December of 2016, 2 unidentified senior intelligence officials warned several U.S. news outlets that they were highly confident that the operation to interfere in the 2016 presidential election was personally directed by Putin. In January of 2017, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, they delivered a declassified report that represented the work of the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, and they reached a similar conclusion.
The true scale of Russia's interference is yet to be uncovered, and may never be. Cyber experts say that Russia's reach online is unprecedented.
I think it was unprecedented, the scale and the scope of what we saw them doing.
And likely to continue.
Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. Their goals were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. They further assessed that Putin and the Russian government felt a clear preference for President-elect Trump, and they had high confidence in these judgments. Look, ultimately, the Mueller investigation examined over 200 contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian officials, and they concluded that there was insufficient evidence to bring any conspiracy or coordination charges against Trump or his associates. They found evidence of meddling, but could not prove collusion. And no one's ever seen this full report, which was over 300 pages. All the media got was a summary written by Bill Barr, who was appointed by President Trump. Now, at the end of the day, let's be honest about the context of this. The Russians did not vote for Trump. That was done by Americans.
Many Americans would love to wake up one morning to find that the national nightmare that is Donald Trump is suddenly over. That while they were asleep, Special Counsel Robert Mueller uncovered incontrovertible evidence of Russian collusion. And that this evidence has made Trump disappear. For a clear majority of Americans, this would be a lovely way to start their day. It is also impossible. No matter how compelling the evidence that Mueller uncovers, there's no clear path to impeachment. Both houses of Congress are Republican, and the Republicans, for now, have no interest in removing a president that their constituents voted into office. So the Russian conspiracy, even if it is proven to exist, is no political magic bullet. It is, however, a magic bullet for the imagination. A large number of Americans are still incapable of wrapping their minds around the fact of the Trump presidency. How could he have happened to us? Perhaps he came from outer space, or at least the Russians elected him. The problem with this idea is that it plunges us into the depths of conspiracy thinking that is perfectly symmetrical to the kinds of conspiracy thinking, like birtherism, that brought Trump into office. It also gets us out of the predicament of having to think about the fact that Americans elected Trump. Even in the unlikely event that the Mueller investigation produces clear evidence of consequential Russian influence on the election, we will learn only that Russia succeeded in influencing American public opinion. So it is American voters that we would do well to be thinking about now. Because no matter how you look at it, they still elected Donald Trump, and he's still president.
We have to look at ourselves in the mirror regarding that choice. Look, Russia may have helped create a conspiracy culture in the United States, but it's Americans that bought into it. Russia didn't make anybody do anything. Americans ultimately chose to believe Trump and elect him. Not once, but twice. And the harsh light of history will highlight that America's decline was an inside job. Americans chose to elect a con man as president. And when a mark discovers that they got played by a con man, it may be difficult, but you had to take responsibility for your role in the con. A con man cannot con people who are not susceptible to vice, who are not in some way greedy or angry or seeking revenge or vain. A con man targets what people desire or what we fear so that our emotions can overwhelm our reason and we make a bad decision. And later on discover that we've been had. But we can only be had when we want something we haven't earned, when we covet a shortcut. And there are consequences for that, which in the election of 2016 included strengthening Russia and weakening America.
We are under the impression that, or many of us are under the impression that Putin was delighted that Donald Trump won the election and had some kind of influencing hand in it. To what degree, we don't know. What the exact nature of it is, we don't know exactly, but certainly some involvement or another. But there's also the sense that Putin's view of Trump has shifted in the years since he's in office. How is that the case and why?
First of all, I think he was tickled that Trump had won. And I think that the idea...
Because he loved Trump so much, or Trump was indebted to him in some way, or because he loathed Hillary Clinton?
Because he loathed Hillary Clinton, and also because it was funny to consider that Trump could win. I mean, Putin has always said that he was a clown. That famous quote, Trump interprets as Putin saying that he is brilliant. Putin actually said he's colorful.
Yarky.
Yeah, and he meant, he's a clown.
Yeah.
He's a joke. Now, the thing is that Putin doesn't actually believe that there is such a thing as an election with an unpredictable outcome. So it's particularly hilarious that everyone was, including Putin, was planning for a Clinton victory and Trump won. And the fact that it was attributed to Putin making him the most powerful man in the world was really fun.
So in this episode, we looked at Russia's role in the 2016 election. Putin definitely wanted Trump to win. And the Mueller investigation ultimately determined that Russia's intelligence machine did meddle in the election, but it couldn't prove collusion. And despite all these efforts, at the end of the day, again, the Russians didn't elect Trump. They didn't start this circus. They didn't start this dumpster fire that is America right now. We did this to ourselves. So that's all we've got for this week. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to help out the channel, please subscribe or follow the podcast on your preferred podcasting platform, and tell your fellow disgusted Americans where they can find us to give us a listen. If you have a few moments, please leave us a rating on your preferred podcasting platform so more folks can find the show. It takes a few seconds, but it really does help people find shows based on recommendations from friends. So if you found this show to be helpful, please go ahead and recommend us. New episodes drop on Wednesday. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you again and hope you have a great night. Take care, folks. Ciao. Bye.